All right, everyone. We're going to get nice and intimate in this panel. I love it. Welcome in. Very excited for you guys to be joining us. Can you guys hear me? Yes, okay. Even if without a mic, I think I'm loud enough. Welcome into our panel. We are the indie anime meets industry, the bold journey behind the Arbiters. So we're really glad that you guys have chosen to spend your next hour with us for the panel. And before we dive into our panel, just to give you guys a little bit of background for the panel specifically, we're going to be exploring the balancing act between DIY innovation and professional collaboration and the real world insights we've gained from events like Annecy and the American film market as well, and what it takes to navigate the indie path and open doors to studio partnerships, specifically with animation, but also I feel like it translates into any type of indie film across the board. So with that being said, I want to dive into all of our panel members. My name is Candace Cruz, so I'm going to be the moderator today for our panel. And we have Khalil, and I want to hopefully say your last name right. Abdelrahim. Am I saying? Oh, say it one more time.
Abdelrahim.
I almost got there.
You were right there.
I was right there. We've got Tamara Berg, John Comerford, Sarah Stretton, and Phil Svitek.
Hello, everyone.
And we'll just dive right in, guys. Are you all ready for it? So I want to just start out with the state of animation and anime industry. And then also, Phil, before we do that, I would like you to give kind of a quick overview of the Arbiters so that everybody knows a little bit more about the project.
Sure. So it's a sci-fi, fantasy feature film, anime inspired. I love animation in general. And it's kind of like a end of the world, gotta save it type of story. And we'll kind of reveal a few more plot details as we go along. But that's kind of in general what it is. And the people here presented are all part of the creative team in some capacity. Even Candace, who's a moderator, she's a filmmaker, an actress in her own right. Not as directly involved in this project, but her and I love collaborating. And we want to use this as a case study to hopefully inspire you, as well as give you specific takeaways, that you can apply to whatever you might be creating, whether it is animation or beyond, hopefully.
And that being said, I actually do want to backtrack a little bit and have everybody go down and kind of say what your involvement in the project is as well before we go into the state of the industry. So do you want to go down this way?
My name is John Comerford. I was involved in the writing of the project and as a producer.
Just in time to finish.
Just in time.
Too late. Tamara Berg. What is my official title, Phil? Production designer.
Wonderful. My name is Sarah Stretton. I joined onto this project originally as an actor and then got involved in story development. And because I have a history in production, specifically mostly ADing and producing, I got more involved as this has grown into quite the team effort, which I think is really the heart of indie filmmaking. It is being able to wear different hats, collaborate with different departments. The better you know your friends and the better you know what everyone is doing, it helps every department. I'm not a production designer, but working next to a production designer, you learn how it can affect your role. Everyone learns from each other in filmmaking, which I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, everyone. My name is Khalil again. Much like Sarah, I initially signed on as an actor and have, is it fair to say, some consulting along the process? I don't know if that's fair to say. My background is in producing television, so, and Phil and I have worked together for a number of years at this point, so it's just kind of bouncing ideas around and different things, seeing how we can help each other.
And that being said, I know that we'll talk about that a little bit more about the creative process, but I think just from listening to all of you guys and your different roles and what you said as well, I think we're all wearing so many different hats in this industry nowadays. So definitely take bits and pieces from what everybody is doing, because it will behoove you, if you are doing your own project, to be able to wear different hats, to learn from everybody and to really work as a team, especially in the indie world, I think. But I do want to dive in to just kind of touch base about the state of the animation and anime industry as a whole. So why don't you give us kind of 3 of the positives and maybe a couple negatives of things that maybe we need to change in the industry?
Sure. So we want to provide you with kind of like a balanced overview, and Candace will give where you can get more of like the in-depth of all of this. So I'm just literally going to go through the bullet points of this. But anime demand is truly mainstream. Like Disney, Netflix, Amazon, they're all vying just to buy more and more of it because audiences demand it. Both blockbusters and indies are winning in the theatrical space. So Flow from last year, the Oscar winner, proves it on the indie side. Neja 2 more recently as an animation. And then also there's a long tail effect. Princess Mononoke, years after, made almost $5 million in its re-release. And there's an investment there, right? So South Korea, for example, is investing in $1 billion in the next few years for adult-themed theatrical, right? As I mentioned, Disney, Amazon, HBO Max, they're all trying to compete. And even more indie distributors such as Neon and A24 are getting in the animation game as well with things like Arco and the aforementioned Neja 2. So that's the positives. The negatives, the summer box office in general, especially in the US and Canada, not so good. And between the mergers and so forth, the streaming bubble seems to be slightly collapsing in and on itself. And of course, there's the anxiety over AI in a number of capacities, right? So, there's those things. Now, I say all that because I remember last year, one of the things we were asked was, is now a good time to get into animation? How do you approach it? And the answer is, it's always going to be a turbulent time for whatever you're trying to create. And so if you're just waiting on the sidelines, that's how you lose. I don't know how to pick a good time. I just know get in the game. And so we just wanted to kind of highlight the overall state of the industry.
Yeah, and I think, Phil, like you said earlier, we will be giving you guys links and resources. So everything that we have up here, there's a lot in depth, and they've put so much work and effort into this project, and want to give you guys resources as well. So if that's something that you want, definitely come up later, and we can give that to you at the end. But I think touching back on the team aspect, that's such an important part from idea to conception to actually like bringing it to life. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you found your team and what are the key players within that team that you should search for? And that can be open to anybody.
So as far as me, I just kind of throw it out to as many people that I love creatively and say, hey, do you want to work on this? And I don't even necessarily know the capacity under which they would be beneficial to the project. I can figure that out later, but for me, it really starts with that. And I've been very, very lucky, and these guys can answer as to why, but they've all continued to stick with me. Some of these guys are working with me on my 3rd feature film. So I think they have answers better answered from their eyes, I guess.
I have a question for you, Phil, which would be, when assembling the team, talking about when to start bringing in different levels of people. So specifically for animation, what's expected of us to bring to the table before bringing to an investor, a studio, or just a friend? Like when you came to me with this project, it was an idea. We weren't even at the script phase. I don't even know if we were at an outline phase. And that came from, we had a history of working on other projects, so we knew we could work together. So the starting point, idea, I think it's important to get things out of your head onto paper, start consulting, start getting notes, and that can be your internal circle, people you have a relationship with. My advice, do what you're going to do, but my advice is to start with people you know and opinions that work well together when you're in the idea phase. Don't start going around trying to get that reach person that you barely know when you're still ping-ponging and you can't answer the 8 follow-up questions you need to answer. Save that person. Know who those people are on your list, but start with people whose opinions, work ethic, creative perspective you respect, but you're still in that, we're molding, we're not pitching. And then you widen. And then it's like for animation specifically, this isn't it's different than just bringing your other scripts, which you can bring at maybe the outline phase, maybe just the script phase, maybe just a talent attached phase. For animation, you have to do more. You have to include so many things. It's your treatments, maybe it's your storyboards, maybe it's your concept art, maybe it's your character design. So for us, yes, first people, ideas, it's kind of was this team. This is who came on board before there was concrete things to deliver. And then who would you go to? Who was our next circle that we went to after this core team was developed?
So John can speak to this process, I guess, but we very much, as Sarah said, we started developing the idea and we created a treatment. We created very rough drafts. And then after about a year, maybe a year and a half, we felt like, okay, we know the draft needs help, so let's bring in people that we know and trust that haven't been involved in the project, who we, perhaps I or these people here don't collaborate with on a daily basis, but, they've come to our projects and we've seen their projects, and so we know we can trust their eye and their advice. And that's kind of how we expanded, and we did multiple iterations of this with the script, through table reads and notes and things of that nature, and we're still kind of continuing that. John, you want to speak more perhaps to that side of things?
I thought you handled that very well, Phil. No, it really is just a matter of, I actually don't know the context of it other than to say this. Whatever you've got, you got to start with, and then you need feedback. You can't be in your own little world thinking it's great. You need feedback, and you got to put it in front of people that you trust and get that feedback, because that's the only way you're going to move forward.
And if I could add on to what John said, obviously you want to work with people who have experience and know-how, but also you want to work with people who want to do it. Yeah. I know that kind of sounds like duh, but when you get into the actual work portion and people have to show up and participate, you want someone who is excited to do it and wants to do it.
I actually do have a question just for the audience, is how many of you all have an idea and are at the beginning phases? How many of you guys are in the current mix of it? So how many people currently have an idea and want to know how to bring idea to proof of concept? Okay, great. And then how many of you all already have an idea rolling and are looking more towards investing, financing, all of that? Okay, so we're all more in the inception. Okay, great. So that's also very helpful, because I think that maybe you all can talk about that, of what it went from idea to then inception to we talked about the team as well, so maybe you can dive into what that process was like for you.
Yeah, so John had this quote, making the theoretical tangible. So for us, as he said, start with something. So Sarah mentioned that we didn't even have an outline. I just had thoughts of what this should be. And, part of it is, in this case, because it's my project, a lot of it falls on me in terms of the creative. So it's okay, I got to sit down with it and draft at least an outline. And then, I kind of also gauged with them of how often do you want me to come back to you, or when is it too much that I'm tapping into you with every dumb idea I've ever had in my life. So there's a balance there, and we kind of figured it out. And I think one of the key things for us is we're still evolving our process. We always try to check in and see, okay, what's working, what can we improve? But really, it was just writing and continue to write. There was no expectation of yes, we had these self-imposed deadlines, but if we didn't meet them, it's okay, because the blessing is we're not working for a studio and we have to deliver at such and such time, right? So we could always have that level of assessment of okay, I was able to turn out this draft, maybe it's 160 pages, 20% of it probably is usable, the rest, let's figure out what I was going for and how to enhance it. And one last thing before I turn it over to these guys, I think they're really great at understanding what I'm trying to go for rather than be like, ooh, I see you have aliens here. Why don't we make them robots? And instead of being on planet Earth, now we're on some random. And it's like, that's not the story that I was telling. So they're very good at enhancing what's there underneath. So.
I'll just say that the ideas are great, but they don't mean anything until they can translate into something more. So I was relentless with Phil about, okay, he has this grand vision about what he wants to do, and it's all wonderful, but what is the story? And then, and then, okay, great, that's a story. Now, what's the script? So I was just brutal about forcing him to not just come up with ideas, but to, okay, translate that. What does that mean cinematically?
Yeah.
What does that mean script? What does that mean day to day? And I don't know how appreciative he was of that process, but I think it's essential because ideas are great, but until you can do something with ideas, they don't really mean much. You have to move them into action, into the 3D world.
I'll say this, just to pipe in real quick. So Sarah and John and I, we would have script meetings, and we'd go over probably like 5 pages over the course of 5 hours. And it was brutal, and they were asking so many questions. And, you know, to John's point, when you're in it as the writer, it's very brutal. Like, you're being asked these questions. Okay, well, what does this mean? I'm like, I don't know. I just thought it was cool. Okay, stop asking me questions. But it was very beneficial, and I tried to make it a point to tell them like that it was very beneficial to have those types of things, and I am very grateful because that's what helped shape the story. And again, that's just kudos to them, to the dedication that we would spend literally 5 hours on just like 5 pages of a script, you know, to that level of detail.
Well, I mean, I think that goes back to building your team, is that you have to have a balance of everyone on your team, because if you're the idea guy, now how do we bring an idea onto paper, onto script? So I think my follow-up question to that is, if there was a step-by-step guide for people from idea to actually having a finished animation and project, who can give me the fastest SparkNotes version of like step-by-step of what someone could do from beginning to end before they even get to the pitch?
No, I nominate Sarah, but
Yeah, she was.
And I know that that's a big ask because everything is different for every project, but there is still somewhat of a formula.
If I were gonna try and like skeleton it down and like bare bones, idea, outline, script, trusted feedback, revision. Then I would, animation also has a whole visual wing.
Okay.
Because while you're doing all of that work on the story and the writing, you have to like divide your brain and at the same time also be doing character, like design, understanding.
The visuals.
World, and then divide your brain one more time and start and have a section of it business. So if you're looking at this as you want to make progress and you have to keep going, so you got to set aside at least how many hours a week? If you're working, people creating, doing another job, you have to do this every week, and I would say you got to do a couple hours to each thing. Maybe it's 1 hour to business, maybe it's 1 hour to the character design, and maybe it's 2 or 3 hours to like writing. And all those 3 things have to go at once, because when you're doing animation, what you're going to be bringing to the table of person is you have to have the script, you have to have an idea of the world, and you have to be able to tell them where this is going to go, who's it going to go to, and who's going to watch it. And so like those are your elements. And because there's so many elements, that's why you need a team. There's practical things you can do involved, like, you know, we could get into like, what do we use? We use like the Google Meets, we use like the writers' duets, we use the accountability groups. We could get into that, but like that's what you have to bring to the table.
Yeah. And I think that that's a perfect segue into at least knowing now the beginning process is to get to the point to what do I need to bring if I'm trying to get my project made. So whether we're pitching, whether we're financing, whether we're going to different markets, I think there's so many different avenues that you guys have all experienced. So what was it like for you going to American Film Market, going to Annecy, going to all these big conferences of sorts? What did you bring with you when you went to those, and what was that experience like?
I'll answer the last part first, I guess. So for us, we made a pitch deck that highlighted, like, you can look up what a pitch deck should entail. One of the famous ones is look up Stranger Things. Like, you can literally download their original pitch deck. It's really cool. So that was one. And then for us, we wanted to do a proof of concept. So for us, we treated it like a trailer. Like, if this movie was complete, what would a 2-minute trailer of this look like? So that way we could show various scenes, various characters, the tone, and just create a level of excitement. Now, you could also do a scene. Obviously, a scene would have been way easier because you're not having to create 33 different backgrounds, all kinds of characters, and, for shots that are on screen for 2 seconds at a time in a trailer. So that way they got to experience the world. Obviously, we wanted to have a script, and, I would say beyond that, if you're looking to investors specifically, a finance package, which basically includes, why you're asking for the budget you're asking, what are your comparable films in terms of, the marketplace, how you've analyzed the marketplace, where you tend to go with it, and then what's called a waterfall. So if I'm investing in your movie, what am I going to get back? When do I expect to get it back, and things of that nature, and what mitigates the risk as well financially. So tax rebates, grants possibly you may have already gotten, maybe you've raised some money through crowdfunding, things of that nature, and then just a straight out overall budget of what the movie is. So I would say pitch deck, the script, the budget, and the finance package, those are the things that you would outright want. And then everything beyond that would be a welcome bonus.
And Sarah, I know we were talking earlier about your pitching experience, the American Film Market. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what the process was leading up to it too?
So more generalized first, pitching, and events, and where to go with your project, I guess. Hopefully you find an ideal situation. You can walk into a room, pitch a person, they hand you money, and you can make a movie. A lot of times you have to try a lot more avenues, and it's about networking. Good news is if you're choosing animation, the animation world is really lovely. Like, the people who are making animated movies, they're really nice. So that's great, because I work also in live action, and I think the animated people are nicer. But so our strategy was really to go out there and find different ways. One of the places we went to was AFM. AFM, the American Film Market, used to be conveniently located in Santa Monica. I think it's coming back.
It's coming back this year.
It's coming back.
Yeah.
When we went, they had located to Vegas, so we got to go to Vegas. The American Film Market, when we went, I looked at our project as kind of like the dessert that people maybe wanted, but they weren't really there for. The meal of AFM is selling to distributors already made films. So that is what they're there. A lot of those people have relationships. You hear about this, like they have individual rooms. Those are all set up meetings. You have to have credentials. You have to have badges. And those are their day jobs. Like, they're there to buy movies for around the globe that they know is going to hit their market. But a lot of people go because they know there's tons of studios, tons of production companies wanting to pitch. We went, and I think, and what we did, and I would advise trying it, is we applied to their pitch program. So we had to send in a digital video, and this allowed us to go up on stage in a big auditorium with an audience and pitch our project to a panel also of judges that had a range of credits, and they would question us and critique the pitches. For us, I thought that was 1, a good exercise, 2, good networking, 3, a good reason to be there. Because, as I said, we were extra. Like, if we went knowing we wanted to learn more, knowing we wanted to meet people, but have a good idea of who you are in the room. Like what you mean to the person talking to you. I'm not gonna go in and think, oh, I'm the highlight of this person's day who they're there to buy fully made movies. I'm not selling them a fully made movie. So know that you're there and you're extra, and that's can be wonderful, but be realistic about it. So pitching in that to an audience, yeah, we prepped. We actually got lucky, and another one of our team members also got selected to pitch, which was very strange because we didn't know why they would pick two people from the same project, and we thought it was an error. And we checked with the rules, and it wasn't an error. And then we got there and got called out on it, but not in a bad way, in a like, why are two of you pitching the same movie? And we said, because you selected us and told us to. And so.
2 bites at the apple.
Yes.
There you
And we
go.
then also had to pitch it in 2 different ways because we're pitching the same project on the same audience. And what else do I want to say? And it was fun and it was scary, but I think that, and we did a lot of practicing, practice your pitch in a billion different ways. Practice it in 30 seconds, practice it in 2 minutes, practice it in 5 minutes, practice it in 10 minutes. Have a conversation with someone about it for 30 minutes.
And practice it. And practice it.
Yeah.
And then
practice
again.
it again.
I think here, like, yes, we had these meetings, and those can be like 30 minutes, and Khalil can definitely speak to the pitch process of that. But I would say most of the meetings, and when I say, I use the word meetings very loosely because you're in an elevator, right? AFM being in Vegas, there were lines waiting for the elevator, and that was when most people actually like talked and connected and so forth. And you'd be asked like, hey, so what's your project?
The elevator pitch?
Literally the 2-minute elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch.
Yeah, so I would say like have that short version of your pitch first and foremost, because that's more often than not what you're going to be presenting.
Can someone give the elevator pitch of the Arbiters right now?
Not today.
Not today. Not today. Okay, guys, that's for later.
I'm out of
That's for later. She said, and I'm done. Okay, so that being said, we've obviously talked about the idea, the treatment, and then going to find investors. So I think the last part for me, before we open up the floor to all of you lovely people to ask any questions that you may have, is what has been the most exciting part of this project for each of you, whether that be the creative, the pitch. I feel like all of you guys have different experiences.
I have one.
Okay, go.
I really didn't know how exciting our script was until I heard Sarah's pitch. She did a fabulous pitch, and I went, that's what we're doing? That's amazing. I can't wait to see that. It was incredible. So I just wanted to give her the kudos on that.
Annie.
Thanks.
Hello. We haven't heard from you
I've been
much.
a little quiet because it's the creative here, and we've been talking more business. But for me, it was doing. So we all, what's it called? The live action, the thing we did at your house.
Yeah, the live action.
So we did a live action
Reference.
reference storyboard weekend, so that the animators would know what we wanted the visuals to look like. And we all acted in that. We were all 100-degree day and just a hot mess, and did all of those moments that were going to be in this trailer that Phil talked about, and then getting to see it at each stage once the animators would lay in the visuals. And it was incredibly exciting to see that part of the process because it was kind of a microcosm of what the entire project will eventually be one day.
I love that.
I would say one of the most rewarding things for me is actually when we went to the World Animation Summit, which I would highly recommend. Because I think it's a very intimate networking experience and I think that it, for me, gave a really like good vibes about the animation world. But so much of these arts that we do are about team and about meeting people. And I'm not saying that you have to be the most social person in the world and talk to everyone, but I do think finding a couple people in your circle will help bring your projects a lot further. So if you're struggling to get your idea off the page, I recommend going to these things, talking to people next to you, going to somewhere like the Animation Summit, joining a little writers group, because if the hurdle you're facing is getting something done, there's probably someone sitting near you who's also facing that hurdle or just faced that hurdle and could help you get to the next point, because you might just need like an accountability person. Phil is our accountability person. He is very good at keeping these projects going, at setting meetings, and I think that's really vital to get your projects moving, is finding at least one other person to push you.
I won't answer the question. I'll create my own question.
Okay, create your own question.
Well, no, obviously there's a ton of stuff that I just love seeing it come together and, seeing everyone's ideas manifest, because everyone does put in their own input. But I will say this, as far as progressing the project forward, don't be afraid to misstep. And I use the word misstep strategically as opposed to failures, because, listen, I could have come off as a fool at any number of these things, and probably some people probably think I was a fool in various questions that I asked, meetings and whatever. But the number one thing, I was never afraid to ask various people, and also mainly coming at it from like, okay, just point me in a direction and I'll prove to you that I can, like, if you tell me go make a proof of concept, I'll make that proof of concept. But, there were various points, like we just needed a direction. And there's been things that have been costly, unfortunately, time-wise, money-wise. But I also do appreciate that this team has never berated me for any of those mistakes. They've been like, okay, so we move on and we figure out the next step of, okay, that wasn't the right person, that wasn't the right company for us. All right, on to the next. And simple as that.
So I actually had the same answer as Tammy, and I'm so upset that I didn't go before her. But so we did like a live action storyboard version of what would play as a trailer, which I'm sad we don't have a TV to show you guys.
I know.
But I love those TikToks where they like recreate a movie and they use like weird props and stuff, and so we got to do that for real. I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome. And you guys will have access to a lot of this. At the end, we can give you guys the link. I could read it out loud right now, but there's a lot of slashes and dashes and dots and all that other stuff. But that being said, I want to open up the floor for anyone that has questions.
I would love to know your thoughts on crowdfunding and also pros and cons between pitching to, of course, crowdfunding and investors. And did you do both?
So we did do a crowdfund for the proof of concept. We raised about $30,000 for that. Now, that's a big number for sure, and that's through the accumulation of me having done multiple feature films and, kind of really growing that network. Just to give you some perspective, I've been in the business for 20 years, so, it takes time. Don't be afraid if it's year 2 for you. Like you can build there. Now, where we're at in this stage, we've been very strategic. Like we've had various debates of, do we do crowdfunding? And crowdfunding for us, we're looking more or less like the traditional Indiegogo or Seed and Spark, but more so like a WeFunder, which is like, I forget that, like equity investing, but like crowd investing, I guess, would be a more proper term. We've chosen so far not to utilize that because we feel like we haven't exhausted every single way to tap into financing and capital. But it's not outside the realm. And I'll be honest, like I was at Annecy, which is a big animation festival, first and foremost, but it also is it's the world's biggest film market. And the amount of panels there that just talked about how they started, with something online, whether it be TikTok, Webtoons is a big thing, and that's what got them the eyeballs, and that's what then made the studios come to them as opposed to the reverse. So it's certainly not a bad strategy. I joked with my team, Comic-Con is actually crowdfunding. That's a true fact. So, you know what?
There you go.
It's you don't have to look down upon it. Perhaps like people might have looked down upon it in years past as a like, oh, you couldn't get an investor or something like that.
I have something I'd like to add too. If you're looking to go the investor route, like it may be a good idea to get creative with like your pitch and kind of specific to the investor. Like, for example, if you're reaching out to Colgate to invest in your movie, you know, like somehow toothbrushes or toothpaste is really important to this movie. Like, we can't make it without toothpaste, and we're gonna have Colgate everywhere. I don't know, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just making it personal to the investor, and so they are more excited about giving you their money.
And brands are sponsoring more movies, FYI.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I got like 6, so if you can always point me in the direction. The first one is, can you speak a little bit to the costs, hurdles, and sourcing of the actual animation?
That's
That's
you,
me.
Phil.
Not me.
So hopefully this answers it, and you can navigate me if you need to. But just reach out to animation studios if you want to start that direction and see, okay, get a quote. You know, here's the idea that I have. What would it cost? You know, that's literally how you arrive at a budget, is you just get quotes. We are working with indie animators, so they're people that have left the studio system and in fact want to create their own studio. And because of that, we've been lucky where there's not really an overhead at the moment. Eventually, once we ramp up into like the full production of the feature, we'll have to rent out offices and things of that nature so everyone is housed. But as of right now, we're able to do it all remote, and people can work out of their homes and things like that. So the overhead has been far lower than, you know, the overall production will end up being. And yeah, just kind of see where things are. Don't be afraid to negotiate in the sense like, listen, I always want to make sure people are taken care of fairly, but so, you know, some people might be willing, like, all right, you know, I can't pay you full price, but I can pay you something, and I'll give you equity in the movie, you know, and they take it or they don't.
Speaking to that, like, if you're looking, like, how would you suggest people go about finding animators? I mean, because there's school programs, there's like you want to speak to, I don't know if you want to speak to.
Sure. So for me, I find a lot of people through Upwork, believe it or not, and I'll put out a job post of like, here's what I'm looking for, and I'm very meticulous with my interview process. And one of the things that I generally like to do is I'll maybe hire a few people. Like when it comes to the creative arts, you got to really just see the product and the process. So I might like, let's say 3 to 5 people. I'll hire all of them just for a short-term trial, pay them for that, and see what they come up with. And then I'll know, okay, how do I like working with that person? You know, what do they deliver? And then we continue on, you know, ideally. And if not, you just continue the search. And also, too, like I asked various people in my network of like, do you know this person? Do you know this person? And oftentimes, they might not know initially, but now I've planted a seed where now they're looking for it. And they'll be like, hey, you know what? Last week I met this person who knows this person. Let me put you in touch. And you would be amazed how many times that ends up happening.
Any other questions?
He said yes.
You have 6. Oh, we have one
We'll
more
come
over
back.
here, and then we'll come back to you for number 5.
That was a few.
Did you, I guess, decide on that it needs to be a film? Because I don't have an idea that kind of grappling if it should be a graphic novel or if it should be an animated series.
Have you started writing it yet?
Yeah, I have like a manuscript that's like almost the length of a novel, and I figured it'd be better as a visual project. And I also do artwork, so I do have illustrations and concepts, but right now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, do I go the graphic novel route or go the animated series route? So still haven't fully committed to one or the other.
Do both.
I was
Yeah,
going to say,
check
that's
it
what I asked.
If you can do the artwork, you got a graphic novel there, because you already got the manuscript and you can do the artwork. So it's done. You just have to do the work. It's much easier to sell an animated series with a graphic novel attached. It's already there.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
I'm also taking a pilot writing class though, so I figured, you know, do both at once, I guess, or
Mhm.
Yeah.
one then the other. Something like that.
Again, if
off
it's
the
already
bat,
there.
most of us were gonna say both. And I think that's because you also don't know by doing which one will lead
Yeah.
to something else. And if you have the capability to do both,
Yeah.
just do it and then put it out there. And then you have to split your mind and
Yeah.
push each one in its own way. That's really awesome. So keep pushing.
And then
Yeah.
you had right up here, yeah.
Yeah, how do you determine the length of the movie and to capture and keep maintaining your audience? And when in the process do you consider the background music?
I'll let John answer the first part, at least for sure.
You get to answer length.
Length? Long enough to cover the subject and short enough to be interesting.
And what's too long and what's too short for it?
Well, for animation, I mean, anywhere from 90. I mean, you don't really want to be over 2.
Demon
Yeah.
Slayer was almost 3 hours.
Well, Demon Slayer is Demon Slayer.
Okay,
Listen,
You
sure.
also are, the more known you are, the more famous you are, the more
Yeah,
forgiveness you have. on
exactly.
length.
So if you don't, they
If
don't
you
know
are someone who's on the greener side, stick to the rules, stick to what's in the margins,
Yeah.
because if you're, I used to, not for animation, but for live action scripts, I used to be a reader, and if it was someone who was unknown, it was over a certain amount of pages, they wouldn't even have us read it.
Yeah, it goes right in the bin.
also, I'll say
It's
that,
too
like,
much time.
depending on subject matter, right? If it's more like, let's say, aimed towards kids and things like that, I would even go less than 90. Like the classic Disney movies are like 70 to 80,
Yep.
right? And also, just in general, our movie would probably will come in at 2 hours. That 30 minutes difference from 90 to 2 hours is very expensive in animation.
Yeah.
So if you go 90 minutes, go 90 minutes.
And I'm telling you now, Phil, ours won't be 2 hours. If I get a hold of it, it's not going to be 2 hours.
With credits.
And to answer your question, the part about the music piece of it, I personally find a lot of inspiration in music. Like I'll hear a song and then come up with the scene. So I didn't even have a scene until I heard this song. So I guess my answer would be it kind of, I guess where you fall on the inspiration piece of it for the background music. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
because it can really help to lead you to tone, mood, the
Yeah.
whole thing. As long as it doesn't detract, take away from that. But-
That
so-
being said, you don't need to add it.
No.
If it creatively drives you, you can add it and use it as motivation, but you're not going to walk into a selling pitch meeting and they're going to say, hey,
That's what I was
do you
trying to
have
say.
the score for this?
Yeah.
But if it inspires you, use it.
And then I know you had a couple more questions.
Just- woman there?
Was there another one back here?
I thought there was, but if not, we can go
Okay.
here.
Go here and
Maybe
go back
this
to
is
you, yeah.
anecdotal, but like I tend to see, I think a lot of like government support for animation, right? Like in the credits, you'll see like the Quebec Film Society or the Canadian, whatever. Like, can you guys talk to that at all? Is there a lot of grants available for animation from governments, or is that an easy process? Have you guys been involved in it at all?
We've been involved. There are many, many available. You have to do your research, and it's a lot that goes into it. Luckily, you can recycle a lot of the stuff because, you know, they'll ask for a treatment, they'll ask for this, but they'll also have their specifications where one might be, hey, give us a 2-page treatment. Another one that I had to put together is give us a 15-page treatment. I'm like, oh, okay.
And like, for instance, at AFM, like there are full booths and areas designated to different countries' grant programs, but you do have to read because they all have requirements. A lot of them either deal with partnering with production companies or people within that country. It is, in essence, about bringing that country work. So you have to partner with people and find the right people. And it is, how would you speak to that, Phil? It's like, because it's like the chicken before the egg conversation.
Yeah, we're kind of, we keep running into that of like, hey, if you get this, we'll give you this. I'm like, yeah, but the other person said the same thing, so can't you just both say yes?
Yeah, that is one of the most frustrating things. I think you talked about hurdles. Is oftentimes in filmmaking you're going to get a lot of chicken or the egg. Someone says, "Hey, we will give you this if you bring this," and exactly that the other person says, "We'll give you this if it's like if we could just all be in the room together." We both said yes. And speaking to working with grants and stuff, there is a little bit of that, which is why sometimes you just have to make steps and choose a direction and see how it goes. Because if you're waiting for everything to fall into place, it takes too long.
It never will, yeah. And I saw you had a question as well.
So this isn't my main question, but I have to ask this quick one because it kind of leads into it. How long has the Arbiters been in production?
The technical term of production, we just started storyboarding, so I would say 3 months. But as far as like us working on it, 2 years, 2.5.
So my question is kind of, when you have a project that's, kind of in progress for a long time, how do you guys stay like financially afloat? Do you seek out other projects and other jobs and kind of balance them out together, or how do you do it?
I think all of us here are independent contractors, freelancers. I've always had multiple projects going on at one time. I don't know if anyone else has a different answer to that.
Well, I'll speak, given the nature of this project, if any one of them has a job come up or things that conflict with this, because we're not at that stage where this is our full-time job, I know I cannot be mad at them for stepping away to make money, right? And my motto is like, okay, let's just figure it out. If someone steps away, how do we keep the ball rolling without them for that duration? And that's all.
All right, I think we have time for just maybe one more question. Did anybody else, because I know you just asked one, so does anybody else? Take it away.
Sure. Just want to know about your character development and story development process. Like, what is it that is that drives it? Is it the characters first, or is it the storyline itself that drives the project?
That's a great question.
It's a chicken or egg thing. Sometimes it's character that drives it, and sometimes you just have a story, and then the characters appear, and they tell you what the story is. And so I don't know how to, because it's different. It's not always the same process.
Sometimes, like I was saying earlier, sometimes for me it's music.
Yeah.
This song makes me remember a feeling or experience I had, and now I have just come up with a scene kind of thing.
I think for this one, so at its core, it's a story about two women that are best friends that have been separated and now have conflicting ideology. And so it's how they maintain that friendship even though they largely disagree. So that was at the core always. And then I kind of created a cast of characters around that. So I think for this one, for the most part, the characters drove it first. But to me, character and plot are synonymous, where the character drives the plot. Otherwise, if a character does something that's uncharacteristic, people are like, well, why would they do that? Well, that's plot. So they both have to ultimately balance.
Did you want to?
I'm trying to think, because I'm like, we also have had discussions, though, where on different passes, you go through the script with like a different eye.
Yeah.
So there might be a pass where we read or do notes specifically going through from one character's point of view. Like, look at the whole script through this one character's eyes. Does their motivation make sense in every scene that gets them there? Does their voice sound like them the whole way? Do you get into a scene and can you give a line to 3 different characters and it's there because you want it in the scene, or is it there because that character would say it? And if you get to a line, you're like, oh, I just want that there, figuring out who would say it in the scene. And I think going through sometimes just different passes, focusing one at a time and seeing what problems that shows you in your writing, or what, like, you're like, wow, this character is really, really solid. This one has a really good point of view. Now we have to get characters C and D have just a strong point of view. But I'm of the opinion that like you shouldn't be able to really pass around lines between characters. It means you don't have it. It hasn't found its person yet.
Well, guys, that brings us to our time. So thank you all so much for taking the time to come to our panel. And definitely come up. I'm sure a handful of us will hang around for a little bit. And if you guys have any other questions, and also all of this, Phil has designed to be shared. So we will have that link for you guys as well. So thank you guys again, and have a great rest of your Comic-Con. Literally.
There you go.
On the dot?
On the dot.
On the dot.
On the dot.
Wonderful.